Imagine a city where no one frowns. Every street corner blooms with rainbow paint. The air hums with cheery music. The people greet each other with big, bright smiles that look just a little too perfect. And if you don't smile, if you hesitate, if your eyes linger too long on something ugly, they call you a downer and you disappear. Welcome to Wellington Wells. On the surface, it's a picturesque 1960s British town, frozen in an endless carnival of cheer. The cobblestone streets are spotless, lined with pastel houses and tidy gardens. Shop windows display fresh bread and flowers, children's chalk drawings cover the pavement, and every passing stranger seems genuinely thrilled to see you. But it's all a lie. Underneath the painted facades and plastered-on grins is a society crumbling from the inside out. Starvation, plague, and paranoia stalk the shadows. And the one thing keeping everyone in line? A little pill called joy. Joy isn't your typical feel-good medicine. It doesn't just boost your mood. It rewires how you see the world. That dead rat in the street? On joy, it's a colorful piñata. The rubble from the last bombing? A charming flower bed. The person screaming in the alley? Just another neighbor laughing too loudly. It's the ultimate filter, blurring reality into something easier to stomach. But there's a price. Joy clouds your memory. Take enough of it and you forget entire years. Forget the things you did. Forget the people you lost. Forget why you needed joy in the first place. And the people of Wellington Wells, they need it. They live in an alternate history where Germany won World War II. Britain's mainland cut the island off after the war, and Wellington Wells, a small city in the English countryside, was left to fend for itself under occupation. The most horrific act of all? In 1946, the city surrendered its children. Every last one was shipped off to Germany under the promise that it would spare the adults from further violence. The guilt was unbearable. So Hayworth Labs, the city's powerful pharmaceutical company, stepped in with a solution, a drug to numb the pain, a drug to help people forget what they'd done, a drug to make them smile. At first, people were hesitant. The idea of altering your mind so completely felt dangerous, maybe even immoral. But Victoria Byng, one of the city's elite, had a plan. Slip it into the water supply, dose the tea. Soon, everyone in the city was voluntarily taking joy whether they realized it or not. Of course, not everyone reacted the same way. Some refused it entirely. Others got bad batches that caused the effects to wear off. These people became the city's outcasts, the downers. To the average citizen, downers are contagious. Being around them might make you sad. And in Wellington Wells, sadness is the ultimate crime. Downers are exiled to the Garden District, a rotting husk of the city where bombed-out houses crumble into the weeds. There's no food, no clean water, just gangs, desperation, and memories you can't drink away. And if you're caught trying to return, the constabulary will beat you down in the street. The rest of Wellington Wells is divided into two other districts. Hamlin Village is where the ordinary joy-takers live, the shopkeepers, laborers, and neighbors keeping up appearances. They spend their days jumping in puddles, skipping rope, and attending parties, all under the constant watch of the bobbies, those hulking policemen in blue uniforms whose job is to sniff out downers and keep the happiness flowing. Above them all sits the Parade District, the sparkling jewel of the city. This is where the elite live, where joy flows like water, and where every rooftop blares the smiling face of Uncle Jack, the city's ever-cheerful TV host. His voice is constant, telling you when to wake up, when to take your pills, and most importantly, to never, ever think about the past. But even here, in the heart of the happiness machine, the cracks are showing. Joy's brain fog is getting worse. People forget how to cook, how to repair machines, how to feed themselves. The city's food supply is dwindling, but most citizens don't even notice, or can't. And if someone does notice, if they start asking questions, there's always another pill. From the first step into Wellington Wells, you can feel it. The oppressive politeness, the too bright colors, the hollow laughter. It's the kind of place that makes you wonder, If everyone is this happy, why does it feel so wrong? And that's where our story begins, with one man sitting at his desk, staring at a newspaper he's supposed to censor. A newspaper that contains a name he knows, a name that makes him forget to smile. And when the smile slips, the hunt begins. Arthur Hastings is not a hero. He's not a freedom fighter, a rebel, or even someone particularly brave. When we meet him, he's just a man at his desk, crossing out uncomfortable headlines so no one else has to think about them. And for years, that's all he's done. Keep his head down, take his joy, and forget. Until one headline changes everything. It's an old newspaper, one he's supposed to redact for the archives, and staring back at him from the faded paper is a name. Percy Hastings. His brother. His younger brother. For a moment, Arthur forgets to smile. The color drains from the world. The cheerful office hum becomes distant, almost hollow. His hands tremble. Because Percy isn't just a memory. He's a wound Arthur has spent nearly 20 years trying not to touch. The game gives you a choice here. Swallow a joy pill and go back to work, or refuse it and remember. The remember option is the only way forward, but it's also the beginning of Arthur's unraveling. When Arthur steps away from his desk, the world already feels heavier. He's summoned to a birthday party in the next room. Decorations, laughter, and a large piñata in the center table. Everyone's excited for him to give it a whack. But when he does, candy doesn't spill out, blood does. The piñata is a rotting rat, and the guests are tearing into it with their bare hands. Arthur staggers back in horror. The others look at him, puzzled, then suspicious. His boss narrows her eyes. "You're off your joy. Take one of mine." When he refuses, her voice sharpens. He's a downer. Call security. And just like that, the hunt begins. Arthur sprinting through the office corridors, the bobbies in pursuit. The city is no longer a friendly playground. It's a trap, and he's marked for removal. Arthur's motivation, at least on the surface, is simple. Find Percy. Make sure he's alive. Bring him home if possible. But there's a darker truth. Arthur doesn't just want to find Percy. He needs to. Because when the Germans demanded the city's children in 1946, Percy was put on that train, and Arthur wasn't. Not because he was too old, not because he was too sick, but because Arthur lied. He told the authorities his birthday was wrong, that he was still young enough to go, just to stay with Percy. But when the moment came, he handed Percy's papers to the constable, told him he'd be right behind him, and walked away with his own freedom. The excuse? Self-preservation. The reality? Abandonment. And in the years since, Arthur has built an entire identity on pretending that wasn't what happened. Joy helped blur the edges of that memory until the newspaper ripped them into focus. As Arthur's journey unfolds, that's the pattern we see over and over. He frames everything as noble, escaping Wellington Wells, finding Percy, exposing the truth. But when push comes to shove, his decisions are calculated to benefit him first. Take Sally Boyle, an old flame who offers him help in exchange for a favor. Arthur doesn't just hesitate. He bristles at the idea that he should do anything for someone else, even someone risking herself to aid him. When Sally asks for cod liver oil for her baby, his reaction isn't concern, it's irritation. The audacity of her to add to his to-do list. And when she admits she can't leave with him immediately because of the baby, he pulls the offer entirely, leaving her to fend for herself in the same collapsing city he's desperate to escape. It's not a one-time moment of cruelty. It's Arthur's default mode. His compassion comes in flickers, easily overridden by the impulse to preserve his own skin. Arthur's ultimate goal is to reach the old rail bridge leading to the mainland. It's the only way out of Wellington Wells, but it's also heavily guarded. To get through, he needs forged transit papers, and for much of the game, that's what drives the plot. But something important happens when Arthur finally reaches that bridge. He runs into the constable who took Percy's papers all those years ago. And in that moment, the last fragments of Arthur's carefully edited memory come crashing back. He didn't just fail to stop Percy from going. He orchestrated it. He promised Percy they'd go together. He took his trust and traded it for freedom. The constable remembers too, but instead of condemning Arthur, he offers him a kind of mercy. Some things you can't make right, but you can choose what you do next. Arthur does escape, but the game doesn't give him a triumphant ride into the sunset. There's no cinematic reunion with Percy, because deep down, Arthur knows Percy is gone. Maybe he died in Germany. Maybe he survived and is living somewhere far away. Either way, Arthur will never undo what he did. And that's the real tragedy of his arc. The entire quest to save Percy was never really about Percy at all. It was about Arthur finding a way to live with himself. The irony? Even when he's free of Wellington Wells, he's still in the same prison, trapped in his own guilt, carrying the same selfishness that put him there in the first place. Arthur's story isn't about becoming a better man. It's about realizing you weren't one to begin with, and having to live with it. But where Arthur clings to guilt, our next character clings to something else entirely, a fragile hope for her child's future. And in a city where children are almost mythical, that hope is dangerous. In Wellington Wells, children don't exist. At least, not anymore. It's been nearly 2 decades since the exchange, the moment every child was loaded onto trains and shipped to Germany. No babies have been seen since. Joy's side effect as a contraceptive sealed that fate. The city's bright streets are filled only with adults, clinging to their happiness and pretending the children never existed. That's why Sally Boyle's secret is more dangerous than anything Arthur Hastings carries. She has a baby. On the surface, Sally is a model citizen, fashionable, clever, always smiling. She's a skilled chemist, making her valuable to Wellington Wells in more ways than one. Officially, she supplies the constabulary with blackberry, a special variant of joy that keeps the bobbies content and functional. Unofficially, she sells joy on the side to whoever can pay. It's risky, but she's careful. And in Wellington Wells, careful is the only way to survive. But behind the closed doors of her flat is Gwen, her daughter. A tiny, fragile reminder that the city's rules can be broken and that the price for breaking them can be lethal. From the moment we step into Sally's story, the tension is different from Arthur's. Arthur is hunted because he refuses joy. Sally is hunted because she has something no one else does. If the authorities find out, they won't just take Gwen away. They'll make her disappear. After all, a crying baby makes people remember things they're not supposed to. And the people Sally has to keep happy, like General Robert Byng, are exactly the kind of men who'd trade a secret like hers for political advantage. General Byng is more than just a customer. He's a predator in uniform. He provides Sally with certain protections, but always expects something in return. His visits to her flat are as much about asserting power as they are about pleasure. And when he hears what he thinks is a baby in her home, Sally has to gaslight him into believing it's impossible. Because in Wellington Wells, the very idea of a child is a spark that could burn the whole city down. One of Sally's most defining moments overlaps with Arthur's story, the infamous cod liver oil request. Gwen contracts measles, and cod liver oil is the only thing that can treat her. The only source? Dr. Verloc's private stash in Hayworth Labs, the same Dr. Verloc who's busy working on a permanent solution to replace joy altogether. Sally swallows her pride and approaches Arthur, offering to secure him the transit papers he needs if he'll get her the oil. It's a fair trade. She's risking her own position with Byng to get those papers, and all she asks is a bottle in return. Arthur's reaction? Suspicion, irritation, accusations of selfishness. It's a perfect contrast. Arthur's selfishness versus Sally's desperation. Arthur can afford to be stubborn. Sally can't. For her, every decision is about Gwen's survival, and there's no time for wounded egos. Part of Arthur's bitterness toward Sally comes from a wound he's been carrying since they were teenagers. She slept with his father. On paper, it's an unforgivable betrayal. But the game hints at a more complicated truth. Sally was taken in by Arthur's family after her own mother died. Arthur's father, older, wealthier, and in control of whether she kept a roof over her head, had the kind of power over her that makes choice a murky word. We never get the full picture. The ambiguity works in the story's favor, forcing us to sit in the discomfort of not knowing whether Sally was manipulative, desperate, or simply surviving the only way she could. Sally's story builds toward one goal: getting Gwen out of Wellington Wells. She repairs a boat, navigates a maze of dangerous encounters, and burns every bridge she has left to secure their escape. Unlike Arthur, she has no illusions about returning someday. She knows Wellington Wells is poison. She knows her daughter will never be safe there. When the moment comes, she doesn't hesitate. She takes Gwen aboard, rides out past the shoreline, and throws her smiling mask into the water, leaving the city and its lies behind her for good. Her ending is almost shockingly hopeful compared to Arthur's. She's free. Gwen is safe. And for once, she doesn't have to smile for anyone. But hope is a rare thing in Wellington Wells. And our next character isn't driven by hope at all. He's driven by guilt, by loss, and by a truth so heavy it could crush the whole city if it ever got out. Ollie Starkey is the kind of man Wellington Wells pretends doesn't exist. A washed-up Scottish veteran, half-pickled in alcohol, living in the garden district among the ruins. No joy, no mask, no cheery facade, just a fraying coat, a rifle without ammunition, and a ghost that won't leave him alone. That ghost's name is Margaret. Ollie talks to Margaret constantly. She laughs with him, teases him, urges him on. She's his anchor in a world that's long since gone mad. She's also dead. And not just dead. Margaret was killed during the German occupation, shot. And Ollie has spent years telling himself he couldn't have done anything to save her. Only, that isn't the truth. The deeper you get into Ollie's story, the clearer it becomes. Margaret isn't just a memory. She's a hallucination built out of guilt. And the guilt isn't about failing her. It's about betraying her. Ollie's story ties directly into the game's biggest conspiracy. During the occupation, the Germans kept Wellington Wells in line with a display of overwhelming force. 43 massive tanks stationed just outside the city. No one dared to resist. Except the tanks weren't real. They were papier-mâché props, hollow, harmless. Arthur discovers this earlier in his own arc, but Ollie learns it firsthand when he breaks into the Victory Memorial Camp. Seeing the truth shatters something in him. If the people had known, they could have fought back, they could have kept their children, they could have saved Margaret. And that's when the memory starts to come apart. Because Ollie didn't just not tell anyone, he actively silenced the one man who would have. Jack Worthing, better known as Uncle Jack, is the smiling face of Wellington Wells, the only TV and radio personality in the entire city. He tells bedtime stories, cracks jokes, and reminds everyone to take their joy. Always upbeat, always reassuring, always there. Ollie hates him. That hatred turns out to have teeth. During a drunken brawl in 1947, Ollie, when furious at Jack's smugness and tired of his holier-than-thou attitude, tipped off the Germans about where Jack was hiding his daughter. That daughter was Margaret. The Germans took her away and she never came back. Ollie told himself he'd only wanted to wipe the smirk off Jack's face. He never believed they'd actually kill her. But they did, and the guilt never left. So his mind did the only thing it could. It rewrote Margaret as his own daughter. That way the betrayal wasn't against someone else, it was against himself. Somehow that was easier to live with. Ollie's mission becomes clear. Tell the city the truth about the tanks, about the food shortages, about the lies. But no one listens to a mad Scotsman from the Garden District. He tries to recruit Victoria Byng, the powerful socialite who helped dose the water supply with joy. She laughs in his face. The executive committee, the supposed rulers of Wellington Wells, are so doped up they can barely follow a conversation. If he's going to wake people up, he needs a voice they trust. And there's only one voice that fits: Uncle Jack. Ollie breaks into Jack's studio, expecting to find him live on air. Instead, the place is wrecked. The cameras are smashed. Jack's live broadcasts are all just reruns. And in the wreckage, Ollie finds Jack's final recorded show. At first, it's standard Uncle Jack fluff, jokes, gossip, reassurance. Then, Jack drifts off script, mumbling about dolls. Margaret's dolls. He slips into a sad, confused haze, almost confessing, And then the truth lands like a hammer. Jack knows who Ollie is, and Ollie finally admits out loud that it was him who betrayed Margaret. The voice acting here is gutting. Ollie's bravado crumbles. He begs for forgiveness from a girl who isn't there, from a man who'll never give it. And when the hallucination of Margaret finally speaks, she tells him it's time to let her go. Ollie does what Jack never could. He takes to the airwaves and tells the city everything, about the fake tanks, the starving streets, the joy-induced blindness. He calls on everyone to stop taking their pills, to face reality before it's too late. Then he climbs to the rooftops, mounts a stolen parade float, and urinates on the city below in an act of drunken, defiant catharsis. By the time he's done, Wellington Wells is burning. The masks are coming off. And Ollie Starkey, liar, coward, accidental revolutionary, walks away into the chaos he's unleashed. Ollie's truth is the ugliest of the three main characters, but also the most human. His revolution isn't born from heroism, but from trying to make one unforgivable act mean something before he dies. And that's the thread running through all of We Happy Few. The idea that truth is messy, ugly, and often comes too late. But what happens when the truth spreads and the city's beautiful lie starts to collapse? That's where all three arcs meet, and where the cracks in Wellington Wells become impossible to hide. For most of We Happy Few, the city of Wellington Wells manages to keep up appearances. The Garden District is kept out of sight. The bobbies patrol the streets. Uncle Jack's voice hums through every speaker, reminding people to keep smiling and take their joy. But the cracks have been there all along, and now they're splitting wide open. Arthur's refusal to take joy has always been dangerous for him personally. But as the story progresses, it's clear the problem isn't just his, it's everyone's. Bad batches are hitting the streets, leaving citizens abruptly off their joy. One moment they're laughing in the park, the next they're sobbing or screaming. It's more than embarrassment. When a joy taker comes down, even briefly, the memories come rushing back. And those memories are toxic. The trains, the children, the starvation. The mass hallucination that keeps Wellington Wells together starts breaking in broad daylight. And when one person slips, it spreads. Sadness is contagious here. Joy's brain fog has another cost: competence. Farmers forget how to plant. Factory workers forget their maintenance schedules. Even the bobbies, the city's enforcers, are losing track of their duties. Food is scarce. Bread in shop windows is painted, not baked. People in the poorer districts are eating charcoal to stave off hunger pangs. In the Garden District, they're scavenging through trash for anything remotely edible. The Parade District is the last place still pretending everything's fine. Here, the elite hoard what little food remains, and their joy intake is so heavy they don't even notice what's happening outside their gates. But the truth is closing in on them too. Arthur, Sally, and Ollie each strike a match, and together they light the city ablaze. Arthur chips away at the facade simply by moving through it, refusing to take joy and refusing to play along. Every encounter he has with joy takers, every moment where their smiles falter, is another ripple in the system. Sally disrupts the flow of blackberry joy to the constabulary. It's not sabotage in the traditional sense, it's necessity. Her attention is split between keeping the bobbies supplied and keeping Gwen alive. When she slips, the bobbies feel it, and that weakness spreads down the chain. Ollie delivers the killing blow, his broadcast exposing the fake tanks, the food shortages, and the lies. Coming from Uncle Jack's voice, whether they realize it's Ollie or not, the message bypasses the filters people have built around their memories. And without joy to dull the impact, it hits hard. Uncle Jack has always been the city's safety valve, its smiling mouthpiece, feeding comfort to a population that doesn't want to know the truth. His shows air on a clockwork schedule, from morning wakey-wakey segments to late-night lullabies. But after Ollie's broadcast, that steady stream of reassurance falters. People begin to notice reruns. Jokes aren't landing the way they used to. The tone of his voice, the way it wavers, becomes impossible to ignore. And if Uncle Jack can't make you smile, who can? The most striking visual in this collapse is literal. masks being torn away. In Wellington Wells, those eerie, perfect smile masks aren't just fashion, they're an identity. They force the face into a permanent grin, making sadness physically impossible to show. When the joy supply falters and the brain fog lifts, people rip them off in rage, confusion, or despair. The streets fill with raw, unfiltered emotion for the first time in years. Shouting, crying, even violence. The city that prided itself on being the happiest place in the world is now screaming in the streets. This is the point where We Happy Few stops being about fixing Wellington Wells. There's no fixing it. Arthur's escape, Sally's flight, and Ollie's exposure of the truth all take place against the same backdrop, a society that was never sustainable to begin with. The joy-fueled utopia was built on an atrocity, maintained through addiction, and doomed the moment reality broke through. The only question left is personal. Not can the city survive, but can you? And that leads directly to the endings, where each character's final choice says more about who they really are than anything they've done before. In Wellington Wells, truth is dangerous. It's painful. It strips away the colors, the smiles, the safety blanket of joy. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. By the time the credits are ready to roll, all three main characters have faced that choice. Take the pill and go back to the dream, or keep remembering and live with the nightmare. Each chooses differently, and each choice is a window into who they really are. Arthur finally reaches the mainland bridge, the last obstacle between him and freedom. Along the way, he's been telling himself this is all for Percy, to find him, to apologize, to make it right. But at the bridge, the last piece of his memory slides into place. He didn't fail Percy. He engineered Percy's exile. He promised they'd go together, took Percy's passport, and walked away. There's no undoing that. At the final moment, the constable who took Percy's papers offers Arthur a choice. Take joy. Forget. Go back to Wellington Wells. Live happily ever after. Refuse. Step into the mainland, guilt and all. If you choose joy, Arthur returns to the city, scooter in hand, smiling like nothing ever happened. The lives he affected, the people he abandoned, none of it matters in the haze. It's the easier road, but a hollow one. If you choose to remember, Arthur steps into a new world, one without the rainbow paint and endless parties. For the first time in decades, he hears someone tell the truth. A kid looks at the overcast sky and calls it a shit day. Arthur laughs because it is, and he's finally free to admit it. It's not a happy ending, but it's honest. Sally's journey has been about one thing: Gwen. Every decision she's made, every deal, every risk has been to protect her baby in a world where babies don't survive. By the time her story ends, Sally has repaired her boat, secured supplies, and cut ties with everyone who might use Gwen against her. There's no second guessing here, no lingering in doorways. She sets sail without looking back, mask tossed into the water like an anchor she's finally cut loose. Of all the endings, Sally's is the least bitter. She escapes not just physically, but emotionally. She doesn't need to pretend her world was worth saving. She only needed to build a better one for Gwen. Her hope is fragile, maybe even naive, but it's real. Ollie's ending is the most chaotic and the most destructive. After broadcasting the truth to the entire city, he rides a stolen parade float through the rooftops, urinating on the streets in drunken defiance. It's part victory lap, part personal exorcism. Margaret's hallucination appears one last time, her voice shifting from posh English to Ollie's own Scottish, the sound of him finally letting go. She tells him it's time to put away childish things, and then she's gone. Ollie walks off into the chaos he's created, knowing he's left Wellington Wells with no safety net. The masks are coming off, the joy is running out, and reality is hitting like a brick. Whether that's salvation or destruction is no longer his problem. The beauty of We Happy Few's endings is how they refuse to give you a clean good or bad. Arthur's remember ending is morally better, but leaves him with nothing but guilt. Sally's is hopeful, but offers no closure for the city she left behind. Ollie's tears the system down, but may be too late to save anyone. And the joy endings, Arthur's return to Wellington Wells, for example, are technically happier, but only because the truth has been erased. That's the question the game leaves you with. Is it better to live in a beautiful lie or an ugly truth? By now, the city's bright veneer is gone, and when you step back to look at it as a whole, you start to see what We Happy Few really is. Not a game about saving the world, but about surviving the collapse of one built on denial. But for all its brilliance in story and theme, it's also a game that stumbles hard in the one place it can't afford to: gameplay. For a game with one of the most unique settings and themes in modern gaming, We Happy Few should have been unforgettable from start to finish. And narratively, it is. The world building, the characters, the intertwining arcs, they all drip with style and tension. But when you're actually playing it, there's this constant sense that the mechanics are pulling against the story instead of supporting it. Originally, We Happy Few was pitched as a survival roguelike. That DNA never fully went away, and it's both a blessing and a curse. You have to manage hunger, thirst, and sleep meters. There's durability on weapons and clothing. Stealth requires patience. A lot of patience. On paper, that fits the theme. You're sneaking through a hostile city pretending to belong. You should be managing scarce resources. But in practice, these systems often feel like busy work. You're in the middle of a tense mission, unraveling a conspiracy, and suddenly your thirst meter is blinking red, forcing you to stop and hunt for a water pump. The urgency of the story evaporates. When stealth fails, and it will, you're thrown into combat. The problem? Combat is clunky. Melee swings feel slow, hit detection is inconsistent, and enemies have the kind of AI that makes them either laser-focused Terminators or completely oblivious. Guns are rare and underwhelming, which would be fine if melee felt satisfying. But it doesn't. Fights often devolve into awkward circling and shoving until someone collapses. It's not that every game needs flashy combat, but in We Happy Few, the fights often feel like punishment for slipping up rather than a viable way to play. The story missions are where the game shines. They're weird, creative, and drenched in atmosphere. But between those missions is a lot of procedural filler, randomly generated streets, repetitive fetch quests, and the same few enemy encounters over and over. The result is pacing whiplash. 1 minute you're uncovering the truth about the fake tanks. The next, you're collecting 3 torn-up scraps of paper from across the city. Again, this isn't just a minor annoyance. It actively works against the high-retention, forward-driving momentum the narrative builds. The biggest missed opportunity is how rarely the gameplay reflects the themes. Joy is a brilliant narrative device, a drug that changes your perception, but mechanically, it's underutilized. Taking joy blurs colors and makes NPCs friendlier, but the effect wears off quickly, and the penalties for skipping it are minimal if you play stealthy. Imagine if joy use was tied to actual survival mechanics, forcing you to choose between clear vision and social camouflage. Or if long-term joy use caused tangible gameplay consequences, memory loss that removed quest markers or changed NPC relationships. Instead, it's mostly cosmetic, which is a shame given how central it is to the world. We Happy Few's story thrives on tension, the risk of being caught, the fear of forgetting, the pull between comfort and truth. But tension in gameplay comes from stakes, and too often the stakes here feel artificial. Hunger isn't dangerous, just annoying. Combat isn't deadly, just tedious. And joy isn't tempting, just optional. The end result is a game that's narratively sharp but mechanically dull in stretches. And when you're trying to immerse yourself in a dystopia where every second counts, dull is the last thing you want. In a way, We Happy Few's gameplay mirrors the city it depicts. Beautiful on the surface, but flawed underneath. The story promises an unforgettable journey, but the systems built to support it sometimes feel like they're working against you. And that's what makes it so frustrating. Because you can see the game it could have been. All the pieces are there, they just needed to click into place. We Happy Few is one of those rare games where the premise alone can hook you before you've even touched a controller. A retro-futuristic 1960s England drenched in pastel colors and sinister cheer, where everyone is addicted to a drug that erases bad memories. That's the kind of world you want to get lost in, not just to play, but to explore, to pick apart, to understand. And when it comes to storytelling, the game delivers on that promise. Arthur, Sally, and Ollie aren't heroes in the traditional sense. They're deeply flawed, selfish, sometimes cowardly, and that's what makes them compelling. They aren't here to save the city, they're just trying to survive it. Arthur wrestles with guilt and the question of whether truth is worth the pain. Sally fights to protect the only innocent left in Wellington Wells. Ollie seeks redemption for a betrayal he can never undo. Their arcs weave through the same collapsing society, each pushing the city closer to the edge in their own way. By the end, Wellington Wells is beyond saving, and that's the point. It was never about rebuilding it. It was about escaping the lie. Beneath the dark humor and psychedelic visuals, We Happy Few is a meditation on willful ignorance. It asks, if the truth is unbearable, is it better not to know? How much comfort are you willing to trade for honesty? And once you've seen the world for what it is, can you ever go back? Those questions linger long after the credits roll. In that sense, the game succeeds where it matters most, leaving you unsettled in the best possible way. And yet, there's that lingering frustration. The world is rich, the characters are fascinating, the themes are razor sharp, but the gameplay often dulls their edge. Survival mechanics become chores, combat is awkward, repetition erodes the sense of urgency. It's the gaming equivalent of a brilliant novel printed on cheap paper. The words are there, but the format keeps distracting you from them. Even with its flaws, We Happy Few sticks with you. The aesthetic, the soundtrack, the eerie cheerfulness hiding the rot underneath. It's unforgettable. It's a game that's easier to recommend as a story to experience than as a system to master. Watch it, read it, pick apart its world building, but go in knowing you'll have to push through some rough edges to get to the heart of it. And maybe that's fitting. Because We Happy Few is, at its core, a game about digging through layers of beauty to find the ugly truth underneath. And once you've seen that truth, you'll never look at its painted streets the same way again. In a better world, We Happy Few would have been a genre-defining masterpiece. In ours, it's a flawed gem, brilliant in places, frustrating in others, and utterly unique in the landscape of modern games. And like the citizens of Wellington Wells, we can either focus on its flaws or remember the beauty in what it tried to be.